Welcome to the Cowpart Bros Podcast. I'm your host, Terrence, and with me is my co-host, Jason, calling in for the Back Cave in Indianapolis. Jason, how are you, my good man?
What it is, man, hey, it's Cowpart Bros night, so you know what that means. I'm fired up. Another one on the road to 100. We're getting there. It's 81. Some might say it's a Kobe episode. Some might say it's the Terrell Owens episode. I think we can find better athletes to correlate with 81. Right now, let's get into it.
You know what? There might be a Dallas Cowboys reference this episode while you mention it, Jason.
Let's pass on that.
Yeah, there's a lot of passion.
Well, maybe it's not the good phrase to use after what the Cowboy did to the Bears, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah, thank you for listening. This is episode 81 of the Cowpart Bros Podcast. Funny and initiated, Cowpart Bros is the podcast here. We are a weekly podcast for fans of sports, current events, and entertainment.
And as always, we are your hosts, Terrence and Jason, and every single Thursday we come to you with a brand new episode where we discuss the current events of the day, sports, and athletes we love.
And even some of the athletes we loathe. No matter the topic, you can expect a brutally honest and fun exchange of snark while learning through the lens of our 30 years of friendship that originated in Calumet Park, Illinois.
And folks, for more Cowpart Bros content, make sure you connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok under the handle Cowpart Bros or Cowpart Bros Podcast for more behind the scenes of the show and just engage with us every single day. But do not forget that the Cowpart Bros Podcast is available to listen and subscribe for free wherever you listen to podcasts.
Like us, love us, share us, follow us. And folks, if you like us, hell, why wouldn't you?
And like Terrence always says, we are the podcast to hear and watch. So make sure you're living it, loving it, and doing it.
All right. I know that the first segment almost didn't happen mainly because Jason saw it first. I needed a little bit more time over the weekend to see it. My God, Jason. The Rock, he's done it again. Dare I say, Dwayne Johnson, his government name. He's done it again. He's not single-handedly. He's built a coalition of the willing. He's better than Barack Obama himself. He's built a coalition. He's saved DC Comics. He did in damn near 5 years what Zack Snyder couldn't do in 20. He brought DC back from the brink with Black Adam. My God, what a movie.
I want you to keep going, bro. You, like you said, you saw it more recently than me. I want to hear your fresh thoughts on this movie before I go into what I'm going to say.
First off, it's really funny to hear people interview The Rock and hear them try to size him up for this suit. Like, The Rock has been an athlete for the better part of 30 years. Why do people try and size him up like he was Ben Affleck like 30 years ago? You know how basically they had to build in muscles for like the superheroes, and they had like The Rock is literally not built like a fucking MMA fighter, like a killing machine.
Okay.
And it just seems odd that like you would literally have fake muscles put into a super suit when literally Dwayne The Rock Johnson is built an entire career off destroying people in the ring and on movie sets. You know what I'm saying, Jason?
I know what you're saying, but I don't know where you're going when it comes to fake muscles.
I mean, when they build the suits for these movies, Jason, they typically kind of make them so that they're almost like super. They're over inflated. Like, imagine if you had like Gal Gadot and you had like over exaggerated like breasts of Wonder Woman. You know what I'm saying? Like, remember the first Tomb Raider video games, Jason? Imagine if they tried to do what they did with Lara Croft and they tried to do that with Gal Gadot in the 2020s, dog. Clearly that would not fly. They tried to do that with the first versions of the Rock suit. And what The Rock said, I don't know if you checked out any of these interviews, dude. Rock basically said, listen, y'all gonna have to throw that shit out. Like, go back to the drawing board. That will not work with me. Did you check out any of those interviews, Jason?
Interviews, no, because I wanted to see the movie. Nothing to do with interviews, so I took the movie for what it's worth. Keep going.
Okay, so I'm just pointing that out. So
gotcha.
I'm just pointing that aside. You know, the movie, I want to hear your, now that I've kind of given some of my asides about the movie and some of the asides about the interviews. What are your thoughts about the movie?
Okay, I definitely want to hear more from you because I feel like you got a lot more based off the first thing you said.
But you saw it first. You should go next.
Okay. I just pointing it out. I just pointed it out, sir. Relax. We're having a good time with this subject. But so I saw the movie, and my original thought was, like you, this definitely is one of the best movies DC's made when it comes to the DCEU movies. Now, after I said that out loud to myself, I'm like, you know what? To be fair, there's two things that the DCEU's put out that I haven't seen yet. So I made sure I watched them both today. One was the Zack Snyder's cut for the Justice League. Watched that today. And the other one, which I'm sure you'll love to hear this, was The Batman with Robert Pattinson. I actually did watch it today.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah, we can talk about my opinions on that off air.
Got him.
But with that being said, I'm willing to say that this Black Adam movie is the best release to come out in the DCEU movies or DCEU offerings, because not everything so far has been movies. I thought immediately the comedy in this movie was way better than any other previous DCEU stuff, with the exception of maybe the Peacemaker. But yeah, definitely better than like Wonder Woman, Man of Steel, Dark Knight, Batman vs Superman. So yeah, that alone, I think made it great. Obviously, having somebody like The Rock in these movies, I think also boosted up the movie a little bit as well. Also a boost to DCEU. No offense to Jason Momoa, no offense to Ben Affleck, no offense to Gal Gadot, no offense to any of them. But having The Rock in this action movie, I think boosted it up a lot more. Now, I'll also admit, too, I didn't know much about the Black Adam character. I didn't read up on it before because I wanted to let the movie speak for itself. And I know a lot of people might say, oh, it didn't follow the comics. Well, how many of the superhero movies follow the comics to a T? I had to say probably none of them. So, and I'm sure somebody's going to say, yeah, this one did. Great. But most of them probably don't.
There's always going to be some creative license taken with every comic to movie reimagining. That's not the issue. The issue is, did listen, dog, they had 2 hours. And in those 2 hours, are you staring at your phone? Listen. There is very little time wasted. I'm a big believer in, okay, there's been a lot, and I'm not going to go as far as say, okay, this is the best DC application, because I still maintain it's the Dark Knight, and then there's everybody else. And that's okay.
That's why I clarified.
Hey, that's okay. But I think a lot of demons for a lot of people that have been putting up with a lot of shit from, just in general, a lot of Batman versus Superman, a lot of the Justice League, a lot of demons from the last decade were exorcised this past 2 weeks. Okay, guys? You're like, finally. Like, everything about this movie is what you were hoping to have happen with the Justice League. Everything. Everything just kind of worked. And it didn't take 3 movies or 4 movies to get ramped up. It just kind of worked. And it is like, why the hell can't all DC movies just be like this? And yeah, there are some great Easter eggs. We are not going to spoil them for you here on CalPart Bros. You got plenty of time. Hell, I highly suggest you watch this film. It's highly recommended. I think it's highly digestible. You don't need to be a comic book geek to be in the Black Adam. You don't have to be the biggest rock fan of all time to get in the Black Adam. This film just works. Certain films just work, okay? I will say this. I really appreciated the fact that they have little Easter eggs in there about movies of old. I did appreciate the little Clint Eastwood reference in there. Shout out to anybody that actually got that and knows what movie that is from. So
I'm glad you kind of went into the whole, DC, DCEU kind of a thing, because yeah, I agree. The Dark Knight if we're talking about all DC movies and offerings, and yeah, Dark Knight's the best one. But I was only speaking on the DCEU movies. And for people out there that don't know what the hell I'm talking about, so just like Marvel has its MCU, there are plenty of Marvel movies that came out before they started the MCU movies, which I believe the first one was the Captain America movie, right? So in the DCEU, DC Extended Universe, from all accounts I've been reading, Man of Steel was the first DCEU offering way back in 2013. So starting with all the DC movies after that, and I can name them off later if we need to, but that's starting with that and up to Black Adam, that's what's in the DCEU as of right now. And I say of all those, I think Black Adam is the best. After I watched Zack Snyder's Justice League, I was kind of debating a little bit because that movie's long as hell. It did add a lot of extra things into it. I feel like it delved more into the origin stories, potentially of certain aspects, things like that. The epilogue at the end, I'm like, okay. But overall, I still have to say Black Adam because with Justice League, the Zack Snyder's cut, I almost feel like it was really just the same movie, just with a little extra added on to it. So it's really kind of the same. It's better than the actual Justice League, yes. But I still have to go with the Black Adam. Maybe a little biased because my lookalikes in there, you know. Shout out to the former sexiest man alive because, you know, because we look alike. But overall, it made me actually excited to see, okay, this is where we're going to go. Okay, this is where DC can be going. What's next? We'll get into that as well. But speaking of which, and again, like we said about other movies we talked about before, you've had a week. So if you haven't seen it, too bad. We're gonna have spoilers in this if you haven't seen it yet. So what? You had a week. It's your fault. The end credit scene, I felt like it was like a great introduction and kind of a great way for DC to say, okay, this is what we're doing. We talked about before what Marvel or DC was doing with the whole DCEU and the whole restart and all the crap they were talking about. The end credit scene that showed Black Adam seemingly what was going to be like the initial stages of a conversation with Superman, played by Henry Cavill. FYI, folks, you saw the news reports. Yes, he's back in Superman. And DCEU made that clear, like, hey, this is where we're going potentially. So that would put like a huge cap on it. I will tell you, folks, there is only one end credit scene, so don't feel free to stick around after that. There's only one. But I felt like that put a great cap on the movies. Like I was one of the people clapping in the theater like some people do. But in my head, I was definitely okay. What's next for DC? You know, we'll talk about that. But what else you got to say about this Black Adam movie, sir?
I mean, I don't have much to say about the segment other than bravo. Like, that's how you body a fucking beat, dog. Like, Rock came up. I loved it, dog. What I really thought about? There was so much sprinkled of awesomeness into this. There was just a right amount of every other character. Aldous Hodge. I'm drawing a blank on his former 007. I'm drawing a blank on his name, but you know, the other assembly of characters. You know, is really not the Black Adam show. You know, Dwayne Johnson, he shows up, he understands the assignment, but there is plenty of heart in this movie. If this was just a dumbass action movie, we wouldn't be talking about this. We wouldn't be recommending other people to go see this. We wouldn't be trying to get women to go show up to see this movie with us. We wouldn't be trying to say, hey, people at work, we should go check this out. You know, there's a lot of heart in this. There's a lot of nobility in this. And dog, he got it, man. Like, this shit is not the Scorpion King, dog. He done came a long way, bro. Like, he done redeemed himself.
I'm gonna go into some of the future DCEU in a second, but yeah, that's one thing I found interesting too. Is that there was a lot of once the first weekend of the movie came and passed, The Rock mentioned that apparently he was kind of told he was going to be getting this role about 15 years ago. So, and I'm like, how's that work? 15 years ago? But in a way, like you said, it's kind of good because 15 years ago was probably closer to the Scorpion King than obviously now. And how much further as an actor or just how much further as a big name has he come in the last 15 years to warrant getting this type of role. Obviously, him getting huge and buff, obviously like he is now, it probably helped. But that way, he probably didn't need those fake muscles because he just used his own. So
I also think he's probably come a long way. His executive producer, bona fides, he's probably he's come to a position where he can say, okay, I'm gonna have more of a say in terms of how these scripts look. He's got more say in terms of management. And so he's just not going to green light anything if he doesn't feel like, okay, this doesn't reflect positively in terms of the tone of how the story should be told. And that we're a long way from like the days of like Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, where Joel Schumacher just went off the rails, man, and just went totally crazy with like the bat nipples and like, had like, had the asses hanging out. Like, what I'm saying? It was just ridiculous. And I'm a big Batman fan. I'm like, okay, clearly the androgyny was just off the charts. Ridiculous, man. You know what I'm talking about, Jason?
Yeah, I distinctly remember Batman and Robin, where they had the first Alicia Silverstone as Batgirl, and had that scene where people were putting on their costume. They had like a close up right on her buttocks area in the costume. Like, was that really necessary?
Yeah.
So I know what you mean exactly.
Yeah.
But the one reason why I want to kind of bring up the future of the DCEU is because now, as far as upcoming, DCEU has 4 offerings, actually 4 movie offerings coming up. I'm sure there'll be a Peacemaker season 2 as well. So that'll make 5. They have another Shazam, another Flash, another Beetle, another Aquaman. 2 things there. Well, one thing, they also mentioned there is going to be a future Black Adam sequel coming. They've already pretty much put that it's going to happen. Now, if you saw that movie, including the end credit scene I mentioned, it makes sense that there's going to be another one. There's not going to be another. There's no additional Justice League movie, which I was kind of surprised by that. But they have other like Flash movies, like Aquaman, like I mentioned, another Wonder Woman. I'm not sure they're still doing Cyborg or not.
Flash got to show up on time first. Shit.
Well, it's supposed to be coming out next year, so let's say replaced them. It is what it is.
Yeah,
but
Flash
apparently
right now.
Well, unfortunately, he's not on jail people time. But but yeah, Black Adam is getting a sequel, and I think the fact that that's already been announced or already in the works, I think that says a lot when it comes to how much DCEU knew this Black Adam was going to play an important role in their future, comings. Again, I'm still shocked that there isn't going to be a Justice League movie, but the fact of the matter is they have Black Adam already featured in this movie and already have plans for a second one. Personally, it's probably if you're DC, you had to do this to kind of not combat Black Panther, but to offer that.
Interested in Black Panther, what they're interested in, and they are interested in they're interested in getting rid of the apathy that Justice League created. There was an apathetic response to Justice League.
You done?
Zack Snyder is responsible for that.
You done?
Now that might generate some hate mail.
You done? I'm
done now. We can do it in the next segment.
The point I was making is, I'm not saying obviously they're worried about Black Panther, but what I'm saying is offering a actual Black superhero, I guarantee you that's come across the mouths and thoughts of somebody in DC. If you think otherwise, okay, well, I might have to question your perceptive level or your intelligence a little bit. And I don't mean you specifically, but,
All right. Cool. All right. Well, that concludes our first segment.
Coolio.
You know what? Also, I'm really shocked that he didn't say, it doesn't matter what your name is, Amon.
As much as The Rock loves where he came from, the WWE, I'm sure he's looking to get away from that as much as he possibly can, short of him getting back in the ring, which may be happening at WrestleMania next year, FYI.
All right. With that said, that concludes our first segment. Coming up next, we talk about the fact that the Cowboys stomped the Jesus out of Chicago Bears. Coming up next on Cow Park Bros.